Just as dusk approaches, a comet descends from the skies. This comet would start everything. I'm gonna review the romance anime Your Name. This is gonna be the greatest video you ever watched. This is Mitsuha Miyamizu. She wakes up in a fright and tries to remember a dream she just had. In it, she gives a ribbon to a young boy while telling her name. She gets ready and heads over for breakfast. Her grandma says that she's back to normal, implying that something strange was going on. The author implements tension between the family and the radio as the election makes her turn it off. As Mitsuha turns on the TV, the news of a comet comes up, which is stated on the news to pass over on October 4th. Now referring to the dream, Mitsuha seems to have the ribbon that she gave to the young boy. They eventually head out to school, and Mitsuha's friends are introduced. While at school, Mitsuha notices something strange, a letter in her notebook asking, "Who are you?" Her friends also agree that she was acting strange, and her friend named Tessie comes up with a theory that it was her previous life. For the next 5 minutes, there's a little bit of yep, a little bit of yap as they walk through their miserable city. This also happens. After being caught by some popular kids at her school, she prays to be a hot guy in Tokyo. In this next scene, a young boy wakes up. And he seems to be possessed, so he makes hella noises. Like this. My conclusion would be the man has a lot of feminine energy. At this point, we learn about both characters, and we see that they're both messing with each other's lives. They both come to the conclusion that they are both in each other's dreams, which triggers a montage. Now, some of you may not know what you're seeing, but this is one of the most scenic scenes in the entire movie. This is basically what just happens on a day-to-day basis. They're just confused people. Now the spoilers start. Mitsuha seems uncertain of the day it is, and puts on her uniform even though there's no school. While carrying her grandma up the mountain, her grandma talks about the culture of tying and making cords. The simple explanation is that the thread is musubi, and it joins people through time. For example, if we were to have a cord from the beginning of time to now, we would be able to trace it all the way back to the beginning. Everything is connected in this art. It is figuratively and literally the flow of time. Eventually they reach the top, and remember that comet from earlier? It's still waiting. As they walk through this paradise, they reach a river, and as soon as they cross over, they seemingly enter into the other world. After exiting the cave and leaving some sake there, Mitsuha is recognized by the grandma to be dreamwalking or whatever she was doing with Taki. The moment he realizes that he's been found, he wakes up with tears. And also a similar thing happens to Mitsuha, where she also wakes up with tears, as if she felt like she's lost something. Although they both are in strange places of their lives, Mitsuha arranges one last thing. A date with Taki's coworker. As during the date, they go towards the museum, and while at the museum, Taki notices something. It is a picture of where Mitsuha lives, the lake and everything. As he stares fondly at it, he recognizes it and starts to admire it. During which, Mitsuha, dressed in her kimono, goes out to watch the comet. As she watches it, nucleus splits and the story resets. Please enjoy one of the best scenes in the movie. What exactly does this mean? Let's ask Khan Academy. Let's create a 2-scale model of the Your Name timeline. The vertical line to your left is the start, and the vertical line to the right is effectively the end of the movie. Now let's write DM for Death of Mitsuha. The vertical line above the linear timeline is the day before the death of Mitsuha. 1 day before the death. After being pulled back that one day, the story continues as normal. But in reality, we also continue the story from the point of Mitsuha's death, starting now. Turns out, Taki wants to meet up with Mitsuha. This is after him losing contact with her. He eventually reaches a restaurant where he shows the man a painting. But the plot twist is when he arrives there, it seems to be a destroyed village where there's nothing remaining. The implication is that during the time when the meteor fell, it killed the entire town, and the people were not able to escape. This really makes him rethink everything. As soon as he checks, this weird thing happens. What was happening was that all the messages were being deleted. Taki later finds out that she had died. After finding out that she died, he goes back to the mountain. And while on the mountain, he has a trip. And it falls through space and time in his mind. And sees the history of this person before. He wakes up transported into the girl's body. And he realizes that there is a chance to save her. On the other side, Mitsuha wakes up as Taki and sees everything that happened. She sees that the entire town was destroyed by the asteroid, and that there was a very small chance that it would be saved, and it was up to Taki to do it. The next scene recalls the events of Mitsuha going to visit Taki, but then him not remembering her. What's interesting is that the cord connects both of them. You might have noticed that they both are on top of the mountain. One of them is from the past, the other is from the present. And the point where they meet is the start of the finale. Now this is the money shot. This is what all the producers were looking for. Taki and Mitsuha both know what they have to do, so they spend the limiting time with each other until they disappear. Of course, they only disappear from each other's view, but they still live on the other side. Mitsuha was about to write her name, but then Taki can't seem to remember why he was on the mountain. And while Taki was Mitsuha, he set up a plan to save the city, and this is it. First, he would blow up the towers and cause a blackout throughout the town. After that would happen, then he would try to evacuate the city, and this is a plan which Mitsuha followed. The meteor would eventually split, as Mitsuha says, and it would come crashing down. The scene cuts to a continued version of Taki's life, where he's going through the motion of applying jobs and failing over and over again. He eventually meets up with that girl from his work, and they talk about all the things that were going on, and how Taki suddenly changed. She eventually wishes him to be happy one day and leaves. At a coffee shop, Taki encounters the two other main characters that were Mitsuha's friends. Lastly, everything leads up to this last scene, which eventually ties the movie up, where Mitsuha watches the car and sees Taki in the other train. They somehow recognize each other and run to find each other, as if to complete their life. Taki eventually finds her at the top of these stairs while she sees him at the bottom. They eventually walk right past each other. But after a moment, Taki stands on top of the stairs while Mitsuha at the bottom. But he collects himself and says, "Excuse me," and says if they have met. And finally he says, "What is your name?"